ladies and gentlemen, we got to get into the big topic of the show. This one is, every time we hear Xbox, most people, or at least most podcasters, are always wondering when the rake stepping is going to happen. Crispy Bomb has been talking about it for, I would say, weeks. And right now, Xbox, before yesterday's announcement, I don't think they could have missed. Like, they were just hitting and cruising so well. And you got to remember, this isn't just going back to when Oblivion was announced and Shadow dropped, and of course, Expedition 33 in Game Pass. So 2 weeks before that was Blueprints Game of the Year or at least a Game of the Year contendee for indies for sure. They've been hitting on all cylinders with value proposition for Xbox Game Pass. We've been eaten to the point where I'm struggling trying to figure out what game I'm going to play next. And I know that sounds crazy, shame on real world problems, but there's just been a lot of games. And they have been doing right by their consumer. They've been doing right by the by the press. Even some of the most negative assholes in the press have had good things to say about Xbox. Again, they couldn't miss. And of course, Monday comes along and we get these bombastic numbers from their third quarter, right? And that's why this whole thing that we're going to get into stings the most, because you have to understand the $3 trillion company, right? Where there is no, or the word no for this company, right? $3 trillion company announces that they have personally had for Xbox the best third quarter in the last decade. Think about that for a second, folks. And of course, console sales down 6%. We understand that. The fourth quarter in a row that it's a decline. It may even be more than that, folks. I remember 4, it could be 5, it could be 6, hell, it could be 10. But I know that they had another decline in console sales. This is not surprising when you offer Xbox everywhere, right? You don't need a console, but you can play here, there, and everywhere. Okay, awesome. And then Tuesday morning happens, and I am, and like everybody in this community, completely broadside by this rake-stepping, asinine announcement. I get why they did it. I'm not a boob. Tariffs, folks, it is costing them 145% more every time a console is made and shipped to the United States, thanks to, politics, which we do not get into here, right? Is that going to go away at some point? You'd like to believe so. But to raise consoles to the highest, which is the 2 terabyte Galaxy Black Edition, to $730 before tax is madness. So you say, well, you know what, Boom? They didn't raise Game Pass, and that is the only saving grace from me giving them the finger. Because at least right now, as of this morning at 11:13 on May 2nd, Game Pass is still $20. Now, does that really affect me if they raise it tomorrow? It is not, because I'm paid up until April 5th of 28. Right? I'm good. But if you want new customers, it's going to be hard getting people in at $25 a month, right? Rather than $20, which was raised last year. Now, that, as far as we know, is the only thing that has not moved. And it doesn't look like it's moving this year. But again, it's Microsoft. There's a rake somewhere that they can step on. There's at least 2 or 3 in their offices that they leave there that they step on every day just to whack themselves in the ass or in the face, because that's just what they do. So you ask, how does this affect Boom? Well, ultimately for Game Pass, no. What it will do is I am obviously not upgrading any Series X anytime soon, even if they have a special edition, because I'm not paying that kind of price. I paid after trading in my old original launch Series X and got a nice chunk of money, was able to buy the Galaxy. I think I had to pay like $200, which wasn't bad. But this console was still $599.99, $600 before tax. It's a lot of money. Where this affects me personally is, as you all know, I'm not on the list for Xbox to get controllers. Like, I'm not that big of a channel where they're like, yeah, let's send this guy a controller. Anything that I have gotten like that, I have asked for. And I ask, not because I'm begging, because I collect controllers. I do. Have they sent me any controllers? No, they have not. The only thing that I can say that they sent me, and I'm really, really glad, and shout out to Obsidian for getting involved in this, is the press kit for Avowed, where it came with Luden's mask. I have that, and I'm still pinching myself that they sent that to me. That's one of my favorite games of the year. And that Avowed, personally for me, has replaced Fallout New Vegas as my favorite Obsidian game. And that's saying something if you've been following me for a while. I love New Vegas. Avowed, now number one. So to have that press kit and be able to display it on my shelf, which you can't see yet, hopefully one day you will, is an amazing thing. But I don't get these controllers. But I have about 60 of them, and every freaking one of them I bought myself. And it's not a problem because I don't want to owe anybody anything, and that's fine. But I don't normally buy like the, Arctic Orange with, polka dots. I don't give a shit about that. I'll go and I'll buy like my favorite controller, gem of the collection is the Sea of Thieves. Very expensive, very rare. I have the Titan 4 one. I got multiple Halos. I got multiple Gears. But the pricing on all these things has gone up, ladies and gentlemen. And now it's going to cost a limited edition controller. And it has to say limited edition, which they could do at any time, is going to be fucking $90. Pardon my French. $90 fucking dollars for a limited edition controller. Holy shit, are you kidding me? Right? So, yeah, tariffs, they suck. And I am hoping, like what Fuzzy said about potentially, going away or getting fixed conversations and contracts and things, which is government, which we don't talk about on this show. I don't trust government, and I don't know what's going to happen. I'm hoping that if they do revert back to the old ways, that these corporations decide to lower shit back to where it used to be. Because then, and if they don't, we're really going to have a problem. But again, I've talked enough. Again, that's where it personally affects me. I feel really sad for anyone that wanted to get an Xbox. I know there's been a run on them. You go anywhere to buy an Xbox now, it's sold out because the price has not raised as of yet. But Crispy Bomb, I'm going to go to you first, and then we'll go in order. You have some smoke for Xbox on this one, man. And I'm very interested to hear what you have to say, man.
Well, you have so much goodwill. And we talk about all the time with Xbox, like, hey, 50 million players have engaged with this game, or 20 million players have engaged with this game. You would think that they know when they have goodwill. And this is where, look, I'm going to be straight with you. I don't hate people that go, blame Nintendo, blame Sony when they started this, back in 2020. I don't hate it, but I also look at it and say, they're a $3 trillion company. I mean, I remember back in the day, what was the saying? Sometimes you got to spend money to make money. Okay? And you had all the goodwill. Oblivion comes out, amazing. Claire Obscured in Game Pass, amazing. Great games coming out. So then you have the quarter financials, amazing. Better than you would think. And then probably one shareholder or a major shareholder's like, oh, now we got to raise prices. Why? You can eat the cost. Yeah, your stock's going to drop for a little while, and then all of a sudden you have a bunch of people that get engaged in Game Pass and everything else. Okay? This isn't a Nintendo problem. This isn't a Sony problem. This is a Microsoft problem. I'm not even saying Xbox. Microsoft. Okay? It is unacceptable that you can't just eat the cost for once. Okay? You want to bring tariffs in, everything else? I don't care. $3 trillion company. It is just ridiculous. And then you look at the pricing. I mean, come on. Like $80 more for the OG Series S?
Yep. The
512 gigabyte? $80 more. But wait, there's more. So all the Series S's, different SKUs, $80. Oh, okay. Well, Series X, $100. $100. Oh, wait, you want that 2 terabyte edition? $130. Okay. And then you look at it. I don't know if they're trying to get rid of stock on the Elite Wireless Controller Core 2. It's the same price. So what are we doing here? This is a money grab. And it pisses me off because the only reason why I'm not like super pissed at them is because they haven't touched Game Pass yet. And I say yet because I said this earlier. Don't step on a rake, Microsoft. Don't step on a rake, Xbox. I've been saying that for 2.5, 3 weeks now. You have the goodwill of the gaming community. And you just literally, you not only stepped on the rake, hit yourself in the face, but you crapped on your consumer. You crapped on them because you know what? You can eat the cost. And yeah, you're going to take a little hit in the end when it comes to, the money hats. And they're going to have to eat it because you are in control of this situation. And instead, you probably listen to some stupid mother trucker who's going to sit there and be like, oh, we need to raise the price because we have all this goodwill. That is the dumbest thought process from a company that hasn't sold the consoles. Yes, engagement is up, okay? But you do want to sell the consoles. And yes, unfortunately, everybody that saw it and they left the price for like maybe 12 hours, all of a sudden sold everything out. But that doesn't matter. Why should that be the case? All you had to do was stay pat. Do exactly what you're doing. Make great games. Drop them in Game Pass. Sell them across the board to everyone else. Like people paid $80 for Forza Horizon 5 on PlayStation. You didn't need to do anything, and you did it anyway. And it's a terrible thing to watch a company that just can't learn from their own mistakes, and they continue to do it. And this is called insanity. Okay? When you are insane, you think you can do no wrong, and you are not in the position to do so. It is unacceptable to look at other gamers maybe still on a 1. Like the 1X still works in my bedroom. Okay? It still works. Okay? And I also, like people are like, hey, you could stream from it. I guess that's an opportunity now because I was going to buy a Series S, but now I'm not because this is just not the way I roll. Yes, I have my Series X. Yes, it doesn't affect me as much as some other people. But if you want to build the brand back up, this is not the way to do it. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And the pricing, you don't know where they're going to go with this. And the worst part is everybody keeps saying tariffs. It doesn't matter with these companies. Okay. The prices have increased across the board throughout the world. It's not just a USA problem, which is where the tariffs come into mind. It is an absolute problem with these companies. And all of them are going to continue to do it until we say enough. Enough is enough. And like I said, I'll give them one credit until they raise the price of that is Game Pass right now. So maybe they're trying to sell you Game Pass through your TV. Like if you're going to invest thousands of dollars, you might as well get a TV that can play Xbox games right off of it. Other than that, like these other companies that are going to rate, I mean, it always stands, by the way, like you're going to have egg on your face. I'm telling you, Sony don't care about you. Xbox clearly don't care about anybody that's trying to get in the ecosystem. If you're already in the ecosystem, okay, we left Game Pass the way it is for now. But other than that, like anybody that wants to get in the ecosystem, why would you do that? And really, all I'm seeing is a setup for going to what we thought was regular price during the holiday as a sale now. And this is a thought process that I've had for a while in the past day and a half, is that they're setting you up to say, oh, okay, Series S is back to, $299.
Yeah.
And that's all they're setting you up.
Yeah.
Or they're going to say, okay, you pay this, but you get a game with it. Like, or you get 3 months of Game Pass or something like that. But it's still, it doesn't make sense. Why did you do it now? And the only saving grace, and this is from Xbox, not any other company right now, is what is that June showcase going to show? Because I'm hearing like astronomical thought processes. I'm also hearing that if it's not, then they're going to eat crow. So are they that confident that raising the price this much is going to do something when it hits that June showcase, when actually PlayStation gamers will be watching for games that might come to their console? You're going to have a lot of eyes on it. Do they have that in their backlog, as we'd like to call it? But at the same time, like, you look at it, you're like, if they don't raise Game Pass this year, I mean, I guess it's a win now, because we're looking at this and we're like, what is your pricing thought process? And this is exactly what Nintendo said earlier. Okay, like, oh, it's going to be variable. And what did you say, Boom? You said slippery slope.
Yep.
Okay. It is. And it's ridiculous. And being somebody that just loves the game, Gears, has gotten into the ecosystem, loves the controller, everything else, and to raise the prices the way you did, I mean, you couldn't have went, $20, $40. Like, you couldn't have done that. No, you went 80, 100. Oh, here we go. I mean, it screams some investor, some big investor was like, you got to do this. And they had the power in some way, shape, or form. And then, for all we know, Phil was sitting there like, no, this is not the time, not the time. And everybody else is like, nope, we got to do this. This is important. We got to make more money for our shareholders. And it's just, it's stupid. It's unacceptable. I hate it. I hate it all around. And you're going to see it from any gaming company. You're going to see it from Grand Theft Auto and everything else. I mean, you saw it, like GameFly raised their subscription right after that. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, this is getting stupid. And we have to be consumers and say, enough is a freaking enough. Some of these digital games, they should not be raised the price. There's no reason for it. It's unacceptable. And I can't understand why they can't get in their head. You can be great if you shut up sometimes, and they couldn't do it. And it's just Microsoft, Xbox, like, I'm going to play on Game Pass. Thank you for that until you do this something else with that. Other than that, I'm really like, I'm appalled at the stupidity. I mean, y'all have degrees and stuff. Like, you can't see through the tea leaves and understand that the consumer might actually like you by the end of the year if you didn't raise the price and then actually buy your console and actually put you in another realm. Nope, they don't understand spend money to make money anymore. And I think that's going to go for every gaming company at this point.
You're not wrong. Phenomenal point, man. Phenomenal point, brother. Silent Cypher, let's bring you in. Crispy knocked it out of the park. I'm very interested to hear your pointed thoughts because I'm expecting some big stuff. Let's get into it, man.
Right. Well, Crispy and I are probably going to disagree on a few things here. So brace yourself, because it will be a little different. But it is sad. I agree. The fact that they had this trajectory, they were successfully crushing it in a lot of ways recently. Things were on a positive upturn for Microsoft. And what did Microsoft do? The thing that they're all so good at. They went and shit the bed once again. As soon as they had an opportunity to have the positive narrative, like a day later, they suddenly kick themselves. It happens every time. Microsoft has an affliction where just the self-inflicted harm happens every time that they have a good news
It's like
cycle.
clockwork, brother. Like clockwork.
So here's my thing. I think honestly, with the price increase, I think it comes from multiple possible causes. I would argue that there's a lot of things that go into it. One, as of course all of you guys have mentioned already, the political climate. We're not going to go into politics and go super into it, but obviously the person who's in charge right now feels like it's a good idea to add tariffs all over the place. That's going to have an effect on not just gaming. That's going to have an effect on all of our stuff. Anything that has plastic goods, anything that is involved in the pipeline that already exists, we're going to see a knock-on impact. And it sucks because right now, as gamers, we're seeing that impact something that we love as a hobby, as something, a getaway for us from the stress of work and all that stuff. The other thing I'd say with that, and again, I said I vary a little bit with Crispy on this one, but number two, I would say, is competitors getting away with charging stupid amounts for their hardware accessories. Um, if Microsoft sees this, if the competition has laid the tracks for higher pricing and their fans are feverishly rushing out to give more money to them despite these changes, it's emboldened Microsoft to jump on the bandwagon as well. And that ties into my third point, which is greed, right?
Yep.
Microsoft is just like other companies in the fact that they've had times where greed has led them to make very bad decisions. If you want a great example of it, look back to the Xbox One announcement when Matrick was out there saying, "Oh, you don't like this? Well, we got an Xbox 360 for you. Suck it up, broke boy." Like, it's not a good look. It's a bad decision. And we saw it and they got the smoke for it. It was not a good situation at all. And it ties into my point above, right? Is like Microsoft sees fans of, and I apologize, Boom, because I know you're a Nintendo guy too. But
Fine.
Microsoft sees fans of like Sony and Nintendo flocking like sheep,
Yep.
willing to just lean over and get railed for the chance to own an overpriced, overhyped, underpowered piece of hardware. And so, what's their solution? If the competition's doing it, then Microsoft figures, why not jump on the bandwagon, do the same thing? They have massive content pipeline right now, so they figure they should cash in, charge people as much as they can for these upcoming big releases. It makes sense as a business. It's scummy, but it is what it is. And the thing is, as we've seen time and time again, there's a sizable difference between when Microsoft attempts something like this compared to when the competition does it. Because when PlayStation or Nintendo do this, they're still considered the premium brands. They have a very fervent customer following, and they do better at putting the narrative out there in their marketing. When Microsoft does it, they get dragged through the mud when they make a decision. If Nintendo or Sony does it, everyone's like, well, but it's Sony and Nintendo. It's fine. They love us. No, they're a company. They want to scrape your wallet for every last buck that they can get from you as well. It's just what it is. So yeah, that's kind of where I sit. I feel like it's a multifaceted situation. It's an issue across the board. Microsoft should be very much ashamed of the timing for this because I feel like it is one of the most tone deaf decisions to be made recently.
Yeah.
It's a bad time. Shouldn't have done it.
Hard to make excuses for the $3 trillion company that literally on Monday posted the best third quarter in Xbox history in the past decade, and then say, well, those numbers weren't enough, charge them more. Again, tone deaf is the perfect. I listen, we don't do the names thing here. So if you have an opinion that I don't agree with in the chat, I'm not going to mention you because it's not right to do, and I don't never going to embarrass anybody because that's not right to do. But there are some people in here that are saying that we're spoiled, and you know what, you might be onto something. We're spoiled because we have so many games coming into a service at $20 a month. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal deal. You cannot argue the value. The value proposition is just ridiculous. With all of that said, though, it's still hard to understand that on a Monday, they announce all of these gains, and on a Tuesday, they make this ridiculous announcement. And what's interesting, and I'm going to hand the mic over to Korkenstein, is, folks, I know this is not breaking news, but Xbox is having a hard time selling consoles at the old price. How are they going to sell consoles at the new price? That's the question. I mean, think about that. For even if they get everything in Game Pass from now to December 31st, 2025, they're still having trouble selling consoles. So how does this help their scenario? I don't know. It's a rake step. It's a tone deaf move. It's a bit of a boob kind of a situation, in my opinion. But listen, I don't think I'm spoiled. I understand as a retiree that my pension is great. I have health insurance. I got dental. I got vision. It's awesome. I work super hard to get it, but it has a ceiling. I know people make fun of me for saying that, but I'm a realist. I run the household here. My salary pays the bills. And I am going to tell you this right now. This uppity pricing on everything is going to change me as a consumer. My consumerism is going to be changed by the pricing because it's just too much. And it doesn't just stop start with video games. I mean, everything is going up. Everything. And I'm not going to get into eggs and cream cheese and bread. That's a reality. But there are other things outside of gaming that are going up, and it's starting to become incredibly overwhelming for the standard regular person. If you're making 6 or 7 figures a year, good for you, man. But not everyone is doing that. And I understand entertainment's the first thing to go, but it doesn't mean that that's the question here, Korkenstein. It's not that they could or should, but they did it because they know they can. That's the freaking problem here, at least in my opinion. Korkenstein has something different to think about. I want to get his hot take on it. Cork, I don't care what side you're on because you're on this panel for a reason. Your opinions matter. Let's get your thoughts on the price increase that really took the industry by storm on Tuesday.
Yeah, let's rewind it back a bit. Xbox isn't $1 trillion company. They're $1 billion company. Microsoft is $1 trillion company. You have to treat these things as two separate entities. Microsoft isn't going to funnel a ton of money into a company that's taking them a loss. That's how a Microsoft now becomes $1 trillion company back to $1 billion company. They're not going to do that. So Xbox has to be treated with their own budget, their own, their own way of providing their own income to make Microsoft $1 trillion company. And that's kind of the dissociative that you have to kind of treat them as two separate entities, even though they're under the same house. So yes, Xbox is $1 billion company. And this isn't a rake step. Like, honestly, a rake step for me would be Microsoft not having tariffs affect them. And they're like, you know what? Raise the prices. That's a rake step because that's a stupid move that they don't have to make. This is them being forced because of tariffs into making something that they have to do it. And then let's do a little hypothetical here. Microsoft makes about probably $5 billion on average a quarter. And there's 4 quarters. So that's $20 billion they make a year, right? Let's say they ate the costs of the 2 terabyte black console. Which they raised like $250.
It went from $599.99. It was $130. It went up.
Okay, so let's do a little math here. Let's say they sell about 10 million consoles, or 10 let me see, about 10 million consoles for that year. So $130 times $10 million comes out to $1.3 billion. So now you're asking them to take roughly about a 7%, about like 6% year over year loss on one console. One console, you're asking a $1 billion company that only makes, I'm going to say only, but when you look at it comparatively to what they're actually taking the loss and profit on, you're asking them to take a 7% loss and eat that cost. No company. This is how you bankrupt Xbox. Especially, and that's just one console. Let's say they do games. Now you're looking at a 10% year over year loss. You're looking at other things, controllers. Now you're looking at a 13% year over year loss because you want them to eat a cost. No company is going to do that. And this is purely because of tariffs. And some people I see, it's a fair point. Why are they raising it across the board? Tell me something. If you were China, what would you do if you had to eat 145% loss to one of your biggest suppliers? Would you A, just keep it to the United States, or B, would you spread that out to every other country that you can to help subsidize that cost? That's what's happening. China is gonna raise the prices everywhere, and to be honest, Microsoft, the biggest thing the biggest supplier is China for them. Anybody that's ordered a controller sees where that controller comes from, and it's China. Or console. Everything I've ordered, I've always checked the tracking, China. And that's just what it is, and it sucks. I mean, Nintendo pivoted and went to Vietnam, which is smart. But they're also, that's only going to last for so long. For me, and that's why you're wondering why everything is raised across the board. It's just effects. This is why the tariffs are so horrible, and why it's dragging everything down around the economy, is because of that reason. And for me, I think a bigger rake step, and this isn't just deflecting to put the focus on PlayStation, but look they were doing this stuff before tariffs even hit. That PlayStation Pro price came out at almost $700, $800 with tax.
Yeah.
For a console that 3%? You were saying the CPU bottlenecks its own GPU.
Yeah.
Where's that excuse?
And people lined up for it.
Yeah. Where's that outrage? Them raising PS Plus. Where's that outrage? That's before tariffs. That's
the
digital
media
service.
protecting Sony. That no one said anything. We said something, but the media didn't.
Well, of course, yeah. But I mean, that's a digital service that doesn't even have tariffs affected really by it yet. I'll go into that, why digital's being affected. And especially when you look at, and then another rake step for me, this would be the actual rake step for me, is if they raise Game Pass with the console prices being raised. They didn't. And don't get me wrong, Xbox is going to raise Game Pass prices. That's going to happen no matter what. I mean, but you got to look at it. Look at the last 7 months that we've gotten: Call of Duty, Indiana Jones, Avowed, South of Midnight. We're getting Doom next month. I mean, we just got Grand Theft Auto, Enhanced, that's being charged $30 on Steam and other platforms. We got that into the service. We got Blueprints. We got Atomfall. We got 33 Immortals. We just got Towerborn. 7 months. And that's not even all the games that we did. And that's at $20 a pop. $20 a month. And they didn't, because they want to give that's something that they can control from their side as a digital asset. But yeah, why did digital games get raised? You got to think. I want to run a little test. I mean, how many of you guys still buy physical on the panel?
No. Unless it's Nintendo, I don't buy physical.
Silent, you buy physical? So everybody here has moved to digital. That's fine. Most people are. A lot of consumers aren't. I think one analyst, was it Matt?
Matt Piscatella was talking about it the other day with Greg Miller. Yeah.
Yeah, that a lot of people are still on physical media. A lot of places can't don't have the infrastructure or don't have the ecosystem yet to move to an all digital platform. And that's where the issue happens. Let's just do hypothetical. If you guys were physical buyers, correct? And you could save 20, what's that?
Cork, it's not physical anymore. Like these games are too large. They have to be downloaded.
To a certain extent. A lot of it subsidizes, or a lot of it is saved on the disc. You do have stuff, but it does help people that aren't on internet. You're not downloading a 200, gigabyte file straight away, rather maybe 100. It cuts it in half and it helps push that with it. If you've ever done anything, usually most of the stuff I've done, it's not as big as comparatively.
Most of the games have a lot of trouble being played without internet.
They just can't be played. The disc is literally an authentication check.
If you are multiplayer, yes. On single player games, no. A lot of the stuff that is put on those CDs,
a lot of those are the same at this point too. It's
not as much. It saves the consumer from having to put, rather than having to download 30 gigabytes, they only have to download 15. It saves in that aspect. I could pull out any disc right now and see what's actually on it, and you'd be surprised at how much info is actually on it. Yes, you still need, but not everybody can upgrade to every country to a all digital internet ecosystem. That's just not feasible right now. Not every country has the infrastructure.
I do see what you're saying, but at the same time, even with single player games, most of them are locked behind an update that you have to get before you can even play the game.
100%, but it's not as steep as just going straight in. That's what the physical disc helps with. It helps eliminate that need for a very large download comparatively to physical or to digital, where like Call of Duty's 120 gigabytes. You can see what the CD has, even if it's 30 or 40 gigabytes on the CD to help. That still helps a lot comparatively to places that don't have an all internet structure. But let's just do hypothetical. You buy physical, correct? How many of you would switch to digital if you could save $20?
Probably most people.
You would effectively be killing physical media. And don't get me wrong, it's out the door. It's 1 foot's already out the door with physical media.
Everywhere you go now, you go to Target, you go to Walmart, you go to any of these big chain stores, they don't carry physical games. They have what's left, but they're not getting any new ones.
Yep.
They've already made that announcement.
Yeah, physical's already out the door for the most part. But again, you don't want to push it out the door before you can have systems in place to help subsidize that physical loss. Because again, like I said, a lot of places aren't ready for an all digital ecosystem or an all cloud system or whatever it is. United States is very lucky. A lot of first world nations are very lucky to have an internet structure. A lot of third world, not so much. And those are a very important part of consumers, especially for those that want Xbox to branch out to more places and support more countries. If they didn't raise digital, most people would, or if they didn't raise digital, most people, they might be asked out. If they have to be forced into a digital ecosystem they're not ready for, they can't support. Not because of their own or not because of their own economy, but because of their own infrastructure with the internet. That's the thing. You don't want to phase out physical before it's time. And dynamically pricing digital, that would happen because people would have to be forced to go into digital to play something. I doubt they would be paying the extra $20, like I said, for physical if they didn't have to, when they could get digital. So that's the thing. Dynamically pricing digital would kill physical within a year or two. It's already out the door, but you don't want to push it out the door before it's ready. That's how you lose consumers. And for me, am I upset? Yeah, I'm definitely upset. I don't like price raises. I like keeping my money. I definitely do. But I understand why all of this is happening, and that's why I'm not outraged for it. Am I sad about it? Yeah. Am I upset? Sure. Am I outraged? No. This is par for the course. This is what happens. I'm going to try and come from a place of understanding. And I don't think it's, like I said, a bigger rake step would have been if they priced Game Pass. That would have been a rake step if they raised the Game Pass with everything else. They don't need to, though, right now. Will they? 100%. But I don't know. I'm not outraged by this. I'm upset because, yeah, I want to keep my money. But when you actually look at it and you try and understand why this stuff is happening, what's going on, and the reasons behind it, it makes sense. Even though it sucks for us as consumers, there's really no choice. And we're just going to have to eat it or get out of gaming. Gaming shouldn't be an elitist hobby. But because of the current economy, it's becoming one. And that sucks for us.
That sucks for the common folk, because again, entertainment's the first thing to go for anyone that is having difficult time doing the most mundane things, like, I don't know, pay the rent, pay your electric bill, put food on the table. So if you can't do those things, obviously gaming, if you're buying the games and you're not in the service, like Xbox Game Pass, you might have to step aside. Now, you mentioned earlier about the, what if they sold 10 million, units, they would take this massive loss. That's the problem, though. See, last year they sold 2.7 million consoles. That was it. So I understand that, if they sold this many consoles, they're going to take a loss at these current tariff prices. They couldn't sell the console at the old price, and now they're asking these ridiculous prices. No one is going to buy these consoles if there are any left, because there was a run on them yesterday. Now, someone had said in the chat that the prices are now in place, and that's what the price is. But the console, all forms, both Series S's, all three of the X, the digital, the 2 terabyte, they're all sold out. So people ran and bought them, so they might see an increase, but I don't know if they're going to get any made, and maybe this was, for them to get rid of the stock. I don't know what the end game is. At the end of the day, we understand why they did it, right? It's easy to understand that the tariff situation, where China is charging 145% for anything coming into the Americas, we get that. I just think that ultimately it's a really super bad look coming off of all of the goodwill that they had. And even though I am, outrage would be a word that I wouldn't really equate with me. Am I disappointed? 1,000%.
Yeah.
Because again, I think that they had all this goodwill, and we're rolling into the June showcase, where it's expected to be the best show, even better than last year, which is hard to imagine or believe. But I mean, listen, you're entitled to your opinion. I do disagree with some of it. But again, you are, an important part of the show, and you don't have to always agree. And I'm glad that we don't all agree, that we're just not a bunch of yes men. But before we get on out of here, folks, we do have one more panel member to get his thoughts, and that is Fuzzy Belvedere. Fuzzy, again, there has been some really finite, interesting, and thought-provoking points from everybody on the panel. And I love that we're having this conversation. People in the chat are being respectful and going back and forth with some people agree, some people don't agree. That's great. That's why we're here. We're here to have a conversation, but I'm interested to hear yours.
All right. So I'll start off from my personal standpoint on the pricing. Kind of much like you said just recently, Boom. I'm kind of disappointed. I would have hoped that they would have outweighted their competition, because they are in that position with the amount of their parent company to outweight them to see how far Sony goes. And then with the second run of the Switch 2, how far that might go as well. So the fact that I already have my Series S and Series X, I even sold one of my Series X's to get my Quest 3 months ago. I still have 2 Series S's, and I was considering possibly trading it in at least one of them after the fact, because I use the one Series S for travel. Now I'm probably going to just hang on to them for right now. But it is disappointing, especially considering like what everybody said. They had the goodwill. They had this tear with Game Pass as far as dropping game after game after game. Highly anticipated, highly rated games. And it doesn't seem like there's any slowdown in that for the remainder of the year or for the next 3 years for that matter. So I'm lucky that I have until 2028 as far as my subscription stacked. I recommend everybody try to use as many Microsoft rewards points towards it. They did up the monthly. I think it went from 12,000 to 17,000 for Game Pass Ultimate. So I kind of knew pricing was looking to be raised at some point. But all of that being said, I just want to touch on one thing as far as how the pricing is set in comparison to what the tariffs are. And granted, the tariffs haven't kicked in before the price hike, and they haven't gone up as high as they probably should, at least in the States. So it was raised globally to kind of, soften the blow. I don't like it either way you look at it, but let's just look at things like the Series S is a $300 item. They're already kind of losing money on it, considering the tech inside is worth more than $300 because of the system on chip that's inside. But all of that aside, they've set a $300 retail price originally. That means there's probably somewhere around 15% margin in there. So that means a cost to a Best Buy, a cost to Walmart or whomever is $255 for that item. Now looking at the tariffs, where that cost is kind of the thing that the tariffs looks at, that becomes, what did I write it at? $369.75. That's what Best Buy, Walmart, and all those other places would have to now buy that console for. So making it $380 makes sense. I don't agree with it, but that's the way it is if you do the full 145% with it being made in China. Now, some consoles are made in other places, depending on the region and distribution aspect, but a majority of what comes to the U.S. is the ones that are coming from China. That being said, that price hike had to happen. But once again, with them being $1 trillion company, or at least their parent being $1 trillion company, they probably should have waited until Sony pulled the trigger. They've been pulling the trigger as far as raising prices of the controllers and other things, globally, as well as the controllers, in the US. They've avoided raising the console prices in the US until the Pro came out, which for that 3% bump, or even if you look at it as a 40% bump over the PS5, is that really worth the price hike in comparison? The numbers are a little off. Like if you were really a 40% bump over the PS5, it should be a bit cheaper, especially considering it doesn't come with a drive and it doesn't come with a stand. But all of that stuff aside, expect pricing to go up over there as well. Expect Switch 2 pricing to go up in the second run. But this is one thing that Microsoft definitely stepped on a rake, where they could have waited or outweighted their competition. They did do what I would say is a reasonable job as far as distributing that tariff hike across globally and not as much to the US. But even still, I'm not going to ask them to eat the tariffs, but I'm also going to ask them to use common sense. Like, if you're always going to be the first one to take the arrows, and then you wonder why you're having a hard time, selling hardware and stuff, sometimes you should probably just sit on your hands. Because a lot of times we've heard in the past how Sony would sit on their hands at like E3 when it comes to a console announcement of launch, just to see what Xbox does, see what their pricing might be or whatnot. This would have been a perfect time for them to kind of sit on their laurels. They just had an amazing quarter for their shareholders. That would be a thing where, hey, you don't have to push that button to increase the pricing. And the shareholders that are probably like, yeah, we should probably raise the price, probably should have looked at the grand scheme of how that, department or how that wing of Microsoft was doing, where this would not be the time. Wait for the competition to do it. Because it's not like you're coming to the industry first with something. That would be a time you want to beat the competition with the next generation hardware or something to that effect, or maybe a handheld. But the hardware price, yeah. If anything, I think they would have been better suited to wait until that hardware, like the partnership with ROG, was announced. Once that's fully announced, then, hey, by the way, we have to raise the price on other things. Because by that point, I'm pretty sure that $1 billion company over there, Sony, PlayStation and everything, would have already raised the price. So that would have given you ample time to say, well, they're only taking and marking up the price another, 50% as opposed to 145% on PS5. So let's do the same, distribute it across the globe, make sure we do a little bit of a softer blow to the US in comparison. So we're still, either dollar for dollar price wise, or maybe $5 under, just to be that much more appealing. at least from a hardware standpoint. Yes, that's not your strongest suit, but they could have done better in that sense as far as either delaying the price hike or adjusting it based on what PlayStation and Nintendo might do. But yeah, it's never a good thing. It's almost like you feel like every time you're having a good time with Xbox, oh, the games are great, or this hardware is great. It's almost like they find a rake to step on, or it's like a hold my beer situation where they all of a sudden want to squash all that goodwill that they've had or all that momentum that they have, and then kind of throw it in the toilet. And they seem to repeat themselves on that on a regular basis. But for me, I had no intention of buying a new Series X or Series S anytime soon. I'm waiting for the next hardware. But then it has me a little nervous now, considering the one console's getting ready to be 2 years old and the other console is like a little over a year old. I know consoles should last 5 years plus if anything, but to ever have to replace those, knock on wood, I don't have to. That's where it's going to get tough. But then again, that's going to be the case for anything. A video card for my PC or, my PlayStation 5, if it should go kaput with that, liquid metal, and I keep it, vertical as opposed to the suggested horizontal, who knows what that replacement cost is going to be down the road. But yeah, it sucks all around. Tariffs, I would say, are a big part of it on the hardware side. The software side, I don't want to take up too much time on this one. The software side of things should not be adjusted until inflation is adjusted, yep. Because the actual software should not fall under the tariffs at all. Like it's a service, but it's not in a sense where a lot of the studios aren't in particularly well. If you look at it from the standpoint, okay, Rare is in the UK and Playground Games is in the UK. They make the game. It's digitally on a server somewhere in the US. Does it count to get a tariff from the service as far as what UK tariffs would be? Or should it just be based off what it being on the servers on stateside cost would be? There shouldn't be any tariffs that pass through that naturally. Now, when everything goes up, whether it be eggs, coffee, gas, whatever, then maybe I can see a price hike. But this $80 thing, if you want to blame Nintendo, I hear you. It just feels like for years we've been hit over the head with digital prices being the same as physical. And I'm not going to get into the whole physical and digital stuff because I, thought early in this generation that we only had a couple of years of physical left. Look at PC. They haven't had physical other than limited run stuff for 15 years now. So it sucks all around. But this isn't the end of it. I say the end because I don't think we're going to have another ET moment or gaming crash, but I do think it's going to wind up being something where we're going to value the indies that are still charging 50 or maybe even 60 for their games as opposed to the AAAs charging 80 plus. I think this is going to be a time where people are going to have to get comfortable with their old hardware. It sucks, I guess, for those still on PS4 and Xbox One. They're just going to have to, hold on to those longer. The Xbox One crowd may not be so bad. If you have Ultimate, you can stream the next gen games on that hardware. So that is somewhat of a benefit. But at some point, that's going to get annoying as far as maybe the artifacting or the choppiness in some cases. But be prepared to buckle down. Like until China backs down, which I don't think they are. We're going to see a lot of stuff that has been made over there cost us more. And as far as for those that are like, well, just make it here. If we don't have the foundries for the chips, what good is building it here if they still have to get the chips from over there to come here to put in the box? Yep. So as somebody that's been in the auto industry, I've seen the offshoring of the industry in a lot of cases. And the thing that's funny to me is how prices on cars have gone up astronomically after COVID. So it's almost like the auto industry is up for a crash and they brought it on themselves before the tariffs even really take effect. So that's on them. And it looks like the gaming industry might be making a similar mistake, but we'll see. All I know is Microsoft rewards points. Get your console or get your hardware that way. I know a few people that saved up for like 3 or 4 years worth of their Microsoft rewards points to pick up a Series X recently. I encourage people to do the same. Make those rewards points pay off for you in the long term, or in the short term, I should say. But man, this sucks all around. I can't defend it for $1 billion company, let alone $1 trillion company. It makes no sense. But then again, we can ask them to reduce the price. We can also ask, our Congress people or Senate to take their actual responsibility on enforcing tariffs as opposed to the executive branch. But politics aside, that's all I got on it, because it just makes me more mad the more I talk about it. So it is what it is.